So here we are, alive, experiencing this incredible mystery that we so easily take for granted, as if it's nothing. And as someone who's been obsessed by that mystery since I can remember, it's great to be in a room full of people who I suspect share that same obsession with what is this? I think every morning when I wake up, it's always there. What is this? What is this? And what should I be doing with it? So having been asking that question and having become a philosopher, written far too many books, I have written a book which I want to talk about tonight. I've even brought it here. The copy should be arriving. I hope they might even be here. I haven't got them tonight. It's called Soul Story, Evolution and the Purpose of Life. And I'm going to share with you as much as I can of it, because I really, because I want to share in the spirit that Maurizio so eloquently laid out. From a foundation of, look, in my experience, nobody knows what this is. I certainly don't know what this is. And yet from that place we can say, I found this, what do you think? And there's such a place of humility there. When we meet in that, I don't know, but what about this? Because we still need a story. There's moments, I'm sure you've had them, you wouldn't be here otherwise, when you wake up and then it's just, and then there's this again. And this, you have a story. If you don't think you have a philosophy, it's because you haven't looked carefully enough. You do. It's just for most of people, probably not the people in this room, but for most people, that philosophy is simply what most people take for granted. If you lived in a different place at a different time in history, it would be a completely different things that everyone took for granted. But if we're going to inquire, if we're going to be really curious, we're going to reach into the mystery, then we have to be willing to go, is that right? And to me, the things that we take for granted right now are just not adequate. So what I've been looking for is a philosophy, a worldview, a way of seeing this, which can actually match my experience. Because I don't know about you, but my experience is profoundly paradoxical. My experience is that there are times when it's all one, and then there's times where this is Tim on a journey, and it's hard, and it's bitter, and sweet, and everything. And both of those seem to be true. And there's times on that journey, and I look at it, and it seems very mechanical. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm going to lay money this is going to fall. Do you know why? Because it always does. Always. Cause, effect. There's that level of reality. But there's also a level of reality, and I'm sure you've experienced it, which is just magic, where the book falls on your head and it's the perfect book for you to read. That, you would not believe the number of people that come to my retreats because a book has fallen on their head. It's just unbelievable. There's a magic, isn't there? You know, there's a magic where just like it's a story and it unfolds and then, oh my God, and you and this and... So how do those fit together? And why I really loved the minute I heard about bringing together science and deep spirituality was because they capture it for me. There's this incredible body of knowledge in science which has created this and everything, brought us here. They've created things you can fly in the sky. Hell. And then there's this deep spiritual wisdom. And the fact is, they don't fit together at the moment. They don't. And you can do it on a very basic level by going, yeah, but they all point to a oneness. Yeah, they do. But that's not enough. Not enough for me. Because if it's actually going to embrace science and spirituality, it has to make a huge jump. Because my experience of the spirit of spirituality is not just that life is magic, that amazing things happen, as well as cause and effect things happen, that there's, in the what I call the deep awake state, there's a fundamental goodness to this. My experience of awakening is not, it's just an illusion. My experience of awakening is, oh my God, this really matters. This really matters. Love really matters. Why? But it does. I know it does, but why does it? And also, things which have been at the center of spirituality in all traditions throughout all history, which is about death. That death is not the end. And having spent huge amount of time around dying people on my journey, my intuition is it most certainly is not. How does that fit together with this? So, I want to outline what I think is a way forward to bring these things together into one story. And I think the key to it is, as it happens, what the next SAN conference is actually going to be on, specifically, which is the philosophy of emergence, of evolution. And my feeling is, if we look at things differently, if science is willing to make a big shift, which I'll describe, and spirituality also is willing to make a big shift, these two things can come together within one story of emergence. So the modern cosmology which we have, which is just mind-blowing. I mean, our forebears would have just found it incredible, what we know, is that we are part of an evolutionary process that has been going on for 13.8 billion years. In science, you had this idea of evolution through Darwin and Wallace, the idea that all life, all of this massive variety, had all evolved from one form of life, a basic form of life, had become everything. And then 100 years, and that's mind-blowing enough, and then 100 years ago with Big Bang Theory, suddenly we went, no, not just life, the whole universe has evolved. And it started with what they call the Big Bang, but that's really a joke name. It's an insult name because it wasn't big, it was very small, and it wasn't a bang because there were no ears and no sound. It started what? It started at what I call it is moment zero. Because what happened 13.8 billion years ago was time started. Time started. So I'd like to say a few words about time. In spiritual circles particularly, well, in science, people say a lot of things which sound very deep. I've done it myself, so I'm really talking about me here. Like, time is an illusion. I don't know anymore what that could possibly mean. Because when I look at reality as it actually presents itself to me, look now, look at reality, I see time. It seems to me that time is reality. What I see is a process of change. It's changing all the time. That's what as a philosopher, I spend most of my time just looking. And what I see is, changing experience. One thing after another. Time. That started 13.8 billion years ago. Now, I want to suggest a new understanding of time. Because we have an analogy in our culture, in English. And it's so common we don't even notice it's an analogy. And the analogy is, time passes. It's like a train. Time passes, and it's all gone. I don't think time does pass. I invite you to contemplate this idea, that actually, time accumulates. Time accumulates. There is more past now than when you came in this room. There is more past now than when I started this sentence. There is more past now than when you set off on your journey, than when you were born. There is more past now than when life evolved, when the universe first formed. The past is accumulating. And here's the thing. I don't think it's gone anywhere. I think the past is right here. Everything that has ever happened is implicit in this moment. Everything. You making this journey, me starting this talk, learning to speak, you learning to speak, the evolution of the human body, the coming together of the galaxy, the sun, the Big Bang. Everything that has ever happened, every single thing is implicit in this moment. It's what makes this moment this moment. So what I want to suggest is, far from being an illusion, the universe is made of time. It's made of the past. That's what it is. And it's all here right now. And as this moment changes, more past accumulates. And that this moment is the meeting of everything that has been and everything that could be. The past and the possible is what makes the moment, which is why each moment is fresh. Each moment realizes a new possibility, but each new possibility includes everything that's happened before. You've never had a moment which was the same, and you've never had a moment that did not include the one before. Because time is accumulating, and things are made of time, which also, by the way, means you are made of time, and I am made of time. So that right now, everything you have ever been is meeting everything that Tim has ever been. That's what makes you, you, and me as individuals. Whether you remember it or not, I'm not talking about that. Memory is in the moment. Memory is a way of recalling it, putting it in a story. But it's what we are. So what I want to suggest is that 13.8 billion years ago, time started accumulating. And things started coming into form. What I call the time stream started to flow. And it started really simple. Really, really simple. But it's been getting steadily more complex as things have accumulated. As the information that's happened accumulates, the universe has itself become more complex. And as it's become more complex, new realities have continually emerged. There was a time when there was pretty much hydrogen and helium. We've come a long way since then. There was once a time when there was no water, and then one day, hydrogen and oxygen got it on for the first time, and there was water for the first time. There was a time when there was no life, and then there was life. There was a time when there was no sentience, and then there was sentience. There was looking and listening. Through this process, there's been continual emergence of new, deeper possibilities, building on what's gone before. And here we are, at the cutting edge of that 13.8 billion years of evolution and emergence, experiencing the latest thing, which is psyche. The word psyche is the Greek word for what we used to call soul. Soul. The whole thing has led to soul. No one could possibly disagree with that. No biologist, no physicist, no one could disagree with that. Started with gas, started with subatomic particles, and it's ended with soul. It's ended with this experience we are all having right now of a level of reality that does not exist in space. Right now, you're experiencing, I'm guessing, exactly what I'm experiencing, which is two distinct levels of reality. Quite different. One of them is the level of the body, the world, sensation, colors, shape, feelings, touch, this stuff, wonderful. And then, whoa, Psyche, mind, imagination, soul, these are all words that come from different linguistic roots for the same reality, which is indisputably there. You can't miss it. You're experiencing a non-spatial reality. One of the key ways of getting this, it's really, really obvious, I know, but bear with me, I'm a philosopher, I like the obvious, is in the world of body, there's a guy on the stage waving his hands around, making funny noises. Can you see that? It's just blah, 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 blah. It's just a guy making funny noises. That's what you're hearing, but what you're also hearing is meaning. But there's no meaning in the funny noises. All of the meaning is in soul, isn't it? All of the meaning is in this non-spatial dimension. Where is it? It's nowhere. What's it made of? Not made of matter. It's made of mind stuff. So 30.8 billion years of evolution have led from basic matter to something that doesn't exist in matter. What a journey. So we can be here discussing it. Now, what science does very, very well, I mean, it's a long way to go, but it's doing fantastically, is it's going, wow, look, we can trace this pattern of the way the universe has evolved through this first phase of physics, the development of the physical universe. And then there's this second phase, which is the evolution of life, the biological universe. And then there's this psyche thing, which is a side effect of the body. What I want to suggest is that having gone, like we did 100 years ago, oh my God, it's not just life which has evolved, everything has evolved. There's a whole period of physical evolution before the biological evolution. What I want to suggest is, in essence, very simple, which is that there is also a subsequent phase of soul evolution. And that soul, rather than being just some strange byproduct of the brain, is actually what it appears to be, which is a completely emergent level of reality. Which, if you're a meditator, or you take ayahuasca, or you go journeying, or you study shamanism, or you do any of the damn things that I expect many of you have done or can do while you're here, which I've spent my life doing, there's a whole universe in soul. It's huge in there. It's massive. And it's real. So what I'm suggesting is that after the evolution of the physical universe came the evolution of the sensual universe, and then the evolution of the imagination. Not as something unreal, but as the most emergent level of reality. So the level of the emergence of the cosmos, and then the emergence of what I call, for want of a better word, the imaginos. And why this matters to me is because I think if we can understand how that is true, we can bring together science and spirituality, because what spirituality has always been about is the imaginos. It's always been about the level of reality which is not to do with the body. It's been about the level of reality which is to do with imagination, images, mind, magic, meaning, story. It also allows us to frame the whole question about life after death in a really, really simple way. Because it allows us to say, hey, you know this experience you're having right now of the sensual body and the imaginative soul, those very distinct levels of reality that you're always in. When this body dies and the sensual level stops, does the imagination also stop or not? I want to suggest to you the answer is it does not. It does not, because it's not just a byproduct of the brain. It is actually an emergent level of reality. Now, before I explain how that could possibly make sense, because I'm aware that in our culture, just to stand up and talk about the meaning of life, which I'm going to head off into in a minute, can sound like a joke. And talking about life after death in most circles of the intellectual mainstream, certainly most scientific circles, I would say is regarded as just like, well, you're an idiot. That's just impossible. And part of what I want to do as a philosopher is go, I don't think so. I don't think it's impossible, and I don't think you're an idiot if you think that. I think there is a robust intellectual understanding which can hold up that intuition. And I'm going to try and do a little bit of it. So, just to make the circle before I do that, what I'm asking science to do is to consider there's a third level of emergence, which is this level in which science is actually done, the imagination, as a level of reality. And I want to suggest to spirituality something which a lot of the traditions, which are very old, as Maurizio said, nearly all of them have the opposite of an evolutionary picture of reality. They have the idea of the fall, which is why they have a very negative view of life. I've written 35 books on all the spiritual traditions of the world. They are beautiful, and most of them have got a really bad attitude to life. Life is a place to get away from, to avoid. Don't get sucked in, pleasure and all that stuff. It's a place of captivity for the soul. Why? There's a better place where you're free, you don't suffer. Get away from suffering. Get away from the journey. It's an illusion. You're trapped in it. There's no you. Ugh. I don't feel any of that. I understand why people in the past have. I really do. But I don't feel that. And it's based on this idea that the spiritual reality, what I'm calling the Imaginos, pre-exists the world. And we've fallen from it into this awful shithole. And if we meditate long enough and we avoid everything that's enjoyable and we deny the very existence of who we are, we can get away at death and we never have to come back. What I'm asking spirituality to do is abandon that anti-life philosophy and to consider the possibility that everything, literally everything, is emergent, including everything that spirituality has been studying, including the planes or the realities of the soul, and including the place we go when the body dies. So that rather than these being always there, they have come into existence. As the imagination has evolved, so they have taken shape. Which is why if you study people's ideas about what happens after death, which I did some years ago, wrote a book on, what you see is the after-death experience evolving, because it's the imagination. That's why if you listen to people talk about their NDEs, their near-death experiences, it sounds like a dream, doesn't it? Because I think that's exactly what it is. It's a dream. But not like a dream, it's an illusion. A dream, it's a reality. It's a dream level of reality. It's the dream level of reality you're already in right now. You're in it now. You're understanding my words in it as I speak. So you can see it evolving, and it starts with being very, very nebulous, like with the Greeks. It's a land of shades, has no real form. And then as the imagination evolves, you get it becoming a projection of an idealized life, the happy hunting grounds, the drinking halls of Valhalla, all of those sort of things. And when the big religions start up, suddenly you have, halls full of Buddhas and saints and angels. And then today, you get everything. It's like the imagination has no limit. You get everything. Because what I'm suggesting is all of that has evolved. It's evolved. So we've had the sensual experience, that's led to the image, and now the image itself can start evolving. You're evolving images as I speak. As you're contemplating the ideas, if these are new ideas to you, that is now giving you a new thought. You're looking at your reaction to it. Soul is evolving here in this room, isn't it? It's happening all the time. So what I want to suggest is, let me go back a minute. Let's go back to the Big Bang, which is just by this flower, just there. What was before? What was before the Big Bang? What is the universe arising in? As a philosopher, it seems to me that there's a huge argument going on between two opposite poles, both of which need to change. One is materialists who go, well, I don't know where it came from, but it's basically matter. It's an object. The universe is an object which has thrown up this arbitrary subject which will be gone, and when you die, you're gone. Then there's the spiritual traditions, which nearly all have the opposite view. They go, no, the universe is not made of matter. The universe is consciousness. Everything you're experiencing is an image in consciousness. So matter is just a form within consciousness. Sounds great, but it doesn't really make much sense anymore because we know that consciousness has evolved. And there were huge periods of which there was no consciousness. So the argument is essentially, the object's real. No, the subject's real. No, the object's real. No, the subject's real. And that's been going on for a few thousand years. What we need if we're going to bring these two together is what I call a paralogical philosophy, something which can embrace paradox. So what I want to suggest to you is that neither the subject nor the object is the ground of this amazing thing we're experiencing. They're opposites which arise like all opposites together. So what came before the Big Bang? Well, who can say? But maybe we can say this. What came before the universe was the potential for the universe. No? What came before the universe was the potential for stars, was the potential for life, was the potential for you and me having this conversation, the potential for soul, the potential for everything. And that what's been happening for 13.8 billion years is that potential has been realized in more and more emergent ways. And as the past has accumulated, there's jumped to a new level, and jumped to a new level, and jumped to a new level, and jumped to a new level. And as it's done that, it's individuated, hasn't it? It's become distinct and individual and relatively separate, so that there are many different chemicals. There are many different stars. There are many forms of life. There are many of us in this room. And as that process has gone on, as that evolutionary process has happened, it's become more and more and more individual. So that you and I are far more individual than two atoms are individual. We're very individual. It's individuated. So we can see that the one time stream has individuated into many, many distinct time streams. And it seems to me that each one of those time streams is both a subject and an object. And that's where the duality arises. So that it's arising within potentiality. The traditional word for that is spirit. So let's just use that for want of a better word. It was good enough for Hegel. It's arising within spirit. Potentiality. And as it's realizing itself, this time stream is both a subject and an object. Now, what do I mean by that? I think let's do it in your experience right now. Right now, you're experiencing the world. That's your subject experience, and you're being experienced as an object. You're a subject and an object. But things aren't quite what they seem. Because we tend to think the world we're experiencing is actually the world. But we know now that it isn't. We know that the world we're experiencing right now is how we experience the world. Because the world that lies underneath our experience is largely empty and is not solid. It's hard to get your head around that, but that's been the conclusion of physics for well over 100 years. It's not here. We experience it as solid, but it's not. Today, scientists are talking about it using metaphors like a hologram, Like this three-dimensional reality is actually two-dimensional. I don't want to get into that. All I want to do is make the point that what you're experiencing is your experience. The world you're experiencing is what? Well, a term which is very popular at the moment in physics, which I think is really good, if not a bit vague, but it's good, is it's information. There is information coming in at you, and you are interpreting that information as this. So subjectively, you are this. Objectively, you are information which is being read. It's a big jump, but if you can make it with me, it'll make what I'm about to say easier. What is that information being subjectively experienced? And it seems to me that is true right the way down here, where you've got simple chemicals, which are also reading their environment, checking out the information. They're not having experience like you and me. There's no sensuality, there's no consciousness, there's no soul. But they are subjectively interacting with the world around them. They're reading the information, the electrical charges of other elements. They're going to meet, that element they're going to explode with, that one they're going to bond with. And others are doing that from them. Everything is subjective and objective. And by the time that reaches sensuality, or basic life, or plants with the sun, everything is reading its environment and being read. So everything is experience, subjectively, and I put experience here within air quotes. I'm not for a minute suggesting that chemicals are having experiences like you and I. But there's the thing which we call experience has evolved from that proto-experience, something more primitive. So at a certain level, you can see here's the information. As the time accumulates, information's getting more and more complex, more and more complex, more and more complex. And on the other side, the subjective proto-experience turning into pre-conscious experience, like plants, turning into sensuality, turning into conscious soul. What science does is it looks at just the evolution of the information. It just sees an evolving object. What I'm suggesting is we need to see it both subjectively and objectively. That this consciousness we're experiencing has evolved from these very primitive roots into this. Now, why that matters for this little journey that I want to make in the middle here is because if you can get that this is information, subjectively experienced, subjectively it's experience, objectively information. If you can get that, then I think you can see that what soul is another level of information. It's another level of information. Here's a biological level of information. Here's a physical level of information. It looks like my body's made of stuff, doesn't it? But it's not. It's not made of stuff because these cells are all completely different to the cells I had some years ago. If you shook my hand today and in 10 years' time, you would shake a different hand. Completely different body, but I'm the same. Why? Because my body is information. And it takes the physics, it takes all the chemicals, and it turns them into the body, which continues as information. What I'm suggesting is that soul is the same. It is information on a higher arc. Here's a very simple analogy for what I'm trying to say about death. Clearly, the experience I'm having right now is linked to my brain. And if you gave me sleeping tablets, I'd go asleep, and if you blew a hole through my brain, it would stop seeing and talking, and it would be a very startling end to my talk. But what I'm suggesting is that it's not just there. So think about a computer. When I wrote my book, a little bit of product placement here. When I wrote my book, I wrote it on a computer. And it would look like that if the computer went down, if I spilt coffee all over it, if it exploded, it would look like I would lose the book. All the information would be gone. Because the information was on the computer. But you know what? That wasn't true. Why? Because the information wasn't just on the computer, it was instantly also on the cloud. So when the computer went down, the information was still there. Was it linked to the computer? Yes. Could I interact with it on the computer? Yes. Did it survive when the computer died? Yes. Why? It's information. Where's the cloud? I don't know. The computer's here. Where's the cloud? It's kind of everywhere. It has no location. Where's soul? I don't know. It has no location. It's kind of everywhere. So I've tried to just touch a very few points here which seem important to just lay out a possibility of a coherent worldview based on a simple insight, which is that everything has evolved. Everything. And that we've gone from a very simple state through the evolution of the complex physical universe, through all the variety of life, to this imaginos, to this world of soul, which is sitting there waiting for us to experience, which we experience now and which we will go deeply into when we die, and which if you listen to those who've had that experience, they will tell you that is exactly what happens. And they will tell you that it's like a dream, but it's more real than anything they've ever known. Why? Because it's the most emergent level. And if you've had deep experiences, you will know exactly what I mean. So there's two things I want to do in my last few minutes. One, I want to talk about the purpose of life. And two, I want to talk about the cutting edge of evolution now and why it's so relevant to what we're doing here. Let's do the second one first. This potentiality, spirit, is formless. Formless potential from which everything has come. All form has arisen. So formless potentiality is realizing itself as everything, objectively. And also, formless potentiality is experiencing itself as everything, subjectively. Every time stream is arising from and being experienced by spirit. So if you look at your identity right now, there is actually 3 levels, not just 2. And what non-duality is about is that 3rd level. There's body, sensation, there's soul, imagination, and then there's the experiencer. There's what is looking, what is thinking, what's witnessing this moment. So I'm going to say now in 30 seconds the deepest truth in every single mystical tradition in the world that I've written about, which I think is just about all of them, which is this. Your deepest identity has no form. And it has no form because it's what's looking. But it has no color. It has no shape. It's what's listening, but it makes no noise. It's what's feeling, it's what's thinking, but it's before all of those. It is the formless presence aware of form. So that as these time streams have developed and become conscious, it is now conscious of the time streams. It is conscious in this moment. Which is why if you look out at your experience as a unique time stream, you're totally individual, and so am I. And that's what's so fantastic. And we're on an evolutionary journey. And then if you take your attention, as you will do, I'm sure, many times during our time together, and you place it back on your own being, there's nothing there. And yet it's everywhere. There's this vast spaciousness, which is one with everything, so that your being is one with all being. What I want to suggest is that what we're experiencing in this non-dual state, which has called everyone here, is the cutting edge of evolution. It's very small. It's very small. But it's the leading edge of this process that's been going on for 13.8 billion years. Because for the first period, the spirit experienced itself as chemicals. During early life, it developed to the point where it could be sentient. And then conscious, knowing that it was sentient. And then soul, imagination, taking images from sensation and creating a world from those images. And then with some people, with some souls who have made the journey enough, the time has accumulated enough to jump to another level, which is when you realize that your deepest being is the source of the universe. And you are also everything. And there's one of us meeting itself in all these different forms. So that right now, at this leading edge where the past meets the possible, human beings are beginning to experience this in numbers that has never been known before. Something which was some exceptional individuals explored, tried their best to understand, often in my view failed to understand, but really did their best with very little to work with, and bequeathed it to us to take that journey further. We know now that it's an evolutionary journey. We know that we're coming into this, not escaping from it. So, 2 minutes for the purpose of life. What is the purpose of this? Is it nothing? Are you here for 5 minutes and then gone, long enough to go, what the fuck, and then gone? Is that it, really? I don't think so. Is it all some cosmic accident? Is it a meaning? Is there millions of universes, all cosmic accidents? Is this just more delusional nonsense? Maybe. But it doesn't feel right to me, because when I hit that deepest place, that most emergent place, when I hit the deep awake, for me what happens is this is exquisite and you matter. You, in your uniqueness, really matter. And the philosophy which I have been trying to articulate is to really hold up some childlike intuitions that arise in the deep awake state. So, I don't think life has a purpose. I think the purpose is inherent in what the universe is. The universe is the realization of potentiality. That's what it is. And because it's evolving, it's the realization of potentiality on more and more emergent levels. Through physicality, through biology, to soul. And here we are. And then this other, more emergent level of spirit, of oneness, of non-duality, of knowing the potentiality. And in that process, it has reached higher and higher levels of individuation. And we are here, and what marks us out above all else, there are other animals on this planet who are very similar, ones on my here, to us. But what our particular thing is, the thing we have specialized in, the thing which makes us so interesting and strange and dangerous, is soul, is imagination. So you are soul. Above all, you are soul, and so am I. Above all, you are your story, and so am I. You are everything you have ever experienced, every thought you've ever had, everything going back through this life, and I suspect many. That's not things that happened and have gone. That's what you are. And in every second, the purpose of life is being fulfilled through you. Because you are realizing more and more potentialities. You've just done it coming to this conference. This is now in you. I'm in you, you're in me. That's the way it is. The past is formed. The formless has yet to come into form, but the past is formed. That's happened now. So my book, which is called Soul Story, was originally going to be called Soul Formation. Because what I suggested, the purpose of our lives, is to form who we are. We are forming who we are, what we are. And what marks us out as different from other less emergent forms is that we are conscious, we are imaginative, and we have choice. That power of the universe, which created the whole thing and has been creating it all the way through, is arising right now in you as choice. The most important thing that you have, perhaps, your ability to creatively choose what you are going to be. Are you just going to repeat the past? Or are you going to see a new potential? What would it be to bring out the deepest potential, the most emergent potential in you? Because it will be unique to you, because you have a unique past. That's what you are. So what it would be for me and what it is for you is two different things. So this is where I've been going, and I'm going to round up because I've run on a few minutes. We are in an epic journey. 13.8 billion years of emergent evolution has led to you and me having this conversation. Here we're conversing in soul, outside space. And we're here to discuss how we can go deeper into an experience of non-duality, something which has been there the whole time, which we are now becoming conscious of. We've moved from unconscious oneness to the beginnings of conscious oneness. What's the purpose? To realize our deepest potentialities. What does that mean? It means to look inside us, not because we have to, but because we can. And find what is it in our past that we can bring something new into the world with. Maybe very small, maybe grand. That makes no difference. And if we add to that, becoming conscious of our own deepest being, where there's one of us, that will happen in a very deep way. And it will happen in a deep way because it will be accompanied by the most important thing I know, which is love. Because the love is how the oneness feels, isn't it? When you experience oneness with one person, it feels like love. When you experience oneness with everyone, it's the most enormous love. That love is where it's going. Why is life so ambiguous? Because all of it's happening at once. That mechanical level, it's still there, and sometimes it's a pain. That biological level, Tim needs to eat. He needs to clean himself up. He needs to evacuate. He needs to do all that biological stuff. And sometimes it's a pain. Sometimes it's great. And then this is here. It's all here at the same time. So our experience is ambiguous because it's the whole spectrum. And also this oneness is here. And that brings this love which holds the whole thing within it, just as it is. So, you've been listening very patiently, and I feel I should confess to end with that this whole philosophy has been an attempt to shore up some very simple feelings which arise for me in that oneness. So I'll end with those. Because it seems to me that despite everything, despite all the suffering, despite the strangeness, the craziness, fundamentally, life is good. Death is safe. And what really matters is love.